Thank you for downloading this Brum Radio podcast. For more podcasts, visit brumradio.com.
And now, for your listening pleasure, it's the Brum Picture Show, brought to you by Brum Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Brum Picture Show, the film show brought to you by Birmingham-based community cinema collective Screen B14. On this week's show, we're going to be talking about aliens. That's right, to celebrate the release of M. Night Shyamalan's Trap, we thought we'd do an hour-long deep dive into the revered director's underappreciated 2002 sci-fi classic Signs.
Wait, what?
Oh, hi Nadine, how are you going?
I'm confused. I thought we were doing the Alien franchise, Aliens.
Oh, why would we be doing that?
Because of Romulus, Alien Romulus.
Oh, yes.
I've just watched 6 Alien films.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't leave my house all weekend.
Oh, that sounds quite time-consuming.
And it was.
Oh, right. Well, I watched Signs 6 times. Have you seen Signs?
Not lately, no.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, should we just do the Alien franchise then?
Well, yes.
All right. Fine. Okay. Sorry, M. Night Shyamalan, but the deep dive into Signs will have to wait till another day. No. Yes, that's right. Later in the show, we will be doing a deep dive into the Alien franchise.
Woo!
To celebrate the release of Romulus. As you've already heard, I'm joined, as always, by the ever-faithful Nadine O'Mahony. Last week, Rory went on a little trip. I'm afraid to say he's up a lamppost somewhere at the moment, and he's not come down. So
I thought he had some kind of heartburn or something. He was gripping his chest and saying he needed to go to the infirmary.
Oh yeah, and he did have that alien life form on his face, didn't he? For
yeah, but
a
that's
good few
gone
days.
now.
Yeah.
That's gone.
Oh, so he's probably fine.
Fully recovered.
All right, that's all right then. Well, yeah, so hopefully he'll be back next week.
Presumably.
But for now, he's busy. So yeah, there we go. Well, first up, as always, it is time for the news section. So Nadine, anything caught your eye in the news this week?
Yes, I think you'll like this.
Oh.
New Tron film, Tron Ares.
Yes.
Score from 9 Inch Nails.
Woo! My beloved 9 Inch Nails. Yes, I heard about this, and I am very excited about this. But I'm also quite baffled as to why it is a 9 Inch Nails score and not a Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross score. Because obviously 9 Inch Nails, that's just Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. I mean, for ages it was just Trent really, but I think he's finally let Atticus have an actual credit. But yeah, so what is it about the Tron soundtrack that's going to make it 9 Inch Nailsy? That's what I want to know.
Maybe it's because Daft Punk did the previous film.
Yeah.
So maybe they wanted like a band.
They're keen to have like a proper band name.
Maybe they'll be in the film.
Oh,
like Daft Punk.
I would like to see that. Were Daft Punk in Tron?
Yeah.
Wow.
There, Daft Punk. They looked well at home.
Oh, wow. I would love if the new Tron film just stops for a 9 Inch Nails song halfway through. That would be great. 'Cause, yeah, that's
amazing,
that's one of my favorite bits of Twin Peaks is episode 8, and just the whole series just stops so 9 Inch Nails can play a song. And it was great. But yeah, I'm intrigued because, I mean, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's scores, they're certainly not miles away from 9 Inch Nails' music, especially the Challengers soundtrack. I think could have been a 9 Inch Nails album for a lot of it. So yeah, I'm very intrigued and I'm excited about that. Anything else?
Okay, so Mishima was unofficially banned in Japan, but Tokyo Film Festival want to premiere it this autumn. And this is super exciting for me.
Yeah.
Because we've programmed at Screen B14 a screening of Mishima for September the 9th at Mockingbird Cinema.
Wow.
So I'm wondering, are the Tokyo Film Festival checking out our programming?
Yeah, looking to you for...
bit of a weird coincidence, don't you think?
That is spooky.
That is
spooky.
Weird.
Now, obviously, I know what Mishima is because I'm some kind of film genius. Yeah. But just for the listeners at home who don't know what Mishima is, what is that?
So the complete title is Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. It's a film Paul Schrader directed many years ago in the 80s. It's widely considered one of the greatest films of all time, but was very controversial in Japan due to its subject matter, because Mishima at the time was quite a poster child for the far right in Japan. And there were also, I think, some elements suggesting that he was bisexual, and I think his widow wasn't very happy about that. But there's a lot of it was a bit controversial in Japan at the time. So while he was allowed to make the film and there was no official ban, it was never screened in Japan. They didn't want it there. In fact, I think they kind of disavowed all knowledge of the film,
Right.
kind of we weren't involved in that, and sort of washed their hands of it. But now it seems time has passed. Mishima isn't as controversial as he once was. He's not such an icon of the Japanese right. It's a film that is very close to Paul Schrader's heart. He used to live in Japan for a while, and apparently it's an amazing film that has been widely acclaimed. And yeah, so now enough time has passed, hopefully. He says there's still some negotiations to be had because it is all very, like I said, it was never an official thing. And I think there was I believe Paul Schrader said one of the producers had to kind of almost stake his life on this film. Like, yeah, it was quite a tricky situation at the time, but the film got made and they agreed never to show it. But now they've been asked to show it. So there's still some discussions to be had, but I think a lot of the original players are no longer with us. So I think as long as Mishima's children don't say they're upset by it, I think he can screen it. But yeah, if you can't get to Tokyo, come to the Mockingbird on the 9th of September. See Mishima.
It's even better than Tokyo.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, very good. So I've got some news that is barely news, to be honest. I've got kind of little bits of snippets from interviews that have been presented as news by various websites. But this one I thought would be very appropriate for today's show, considering the theme. And that is the fact that Ridley Scott says that Blade Runner is one of his top 4 favourite films.
Oh, yeah. Wow, come on.
I know. Classic Ridley. Like, Ridley is one of the most aggressively confident people I have ever seen.
I love that.
I was going to say met, but I've not met Ridley, unfortunately.
You feel like you have.
I feel like I have. But like the
chutzpah.
The chutzpah to say that your own film is one of the 4 greatest films of all time. It's amazing. So apparently his 4 favourite films are 2001: A Space Odyssey. Yeah. Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then Quest for Fire, which sounds really interesting. I've never seen it, but it's got Ron Perlman in, and it depicts prehistoric times. So it's set in the Paleolithic age.
I think we're all going to be seeking that out now, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about a tribe who discover fire by lightning. And of course, Ron Perlman, also appropriate for this episode because he appears in Alien Resurrection.
Yeah.
So, that ties in, doesn't it? So this was just a red carpet interview with Letterboxd, and then he said Blade Runner was in there because it set the pace for many things, and that was it. That was the only thing he said about it in that interview, in that edit. Anyway,
I must add that Ridley Scott is not from Yorkshire.
He's not from Yorkshire, but canonically,
feel that he is.
Yeah, in a previous episode, we decided he was from Yorkshire, and now canonically on the Brum Picture Show, Ridley Scott talks like this. And Blade Runner, it's brilliant.
Bloody brilliant,
that Blade Runner.
But come on, Paul.
Yeah.
I know it seems arrogant to name one of your own films as your Letterboxd top 4. But when one of your own films is the original Blade Runner, I think that's fair.
No, I mean, that's fair enough. It's fair enough.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
and he's Ridley. He's Ridley. He can get away with it. But just what I wish I could be more like Ridley Scott. Just be like,
oh, so do I.
Exactly. Just, that confidence. Amazing. One final thing which intrigued me, again, not really a story, but this was on Film Update's Twitter account. Jake Gyllenhaal has been spotted. And it was a picture of him out and about in some shorts.
With spots on?
No, it was just seen. Now, is there
Does
some...
he exist? Is he real?
Is there some context that I'm not aware of? Has Jake Gyllenhaal gone missing recently or been, off the radar? And now it's
missing from our theatre screens.
Yes.
We want you back up on there, Jake. Get off of Apple Plus and Amazon Prime.
That's right.
Get back up there.
Get back up there.
Sorry, I've gone a bit Ridley, haven't I?
Get back up and slap this fish.
Yes,
now.
go on.
Yeah. So I don't know. So it's good. Jake Gyllenhaal's been spotted. Is out there.
I'd be very excited to see Jake Gyllenhaal walking around in... What was he walking around in?
Shorts.
Well, come on. That is news.
That's
big news.
So there you go.
Where was this again? Can I look it up?
Just out on the street. Film updates.
Okay.
Hang on. Let me.
Yes, please send it to me.
Let me show you.
I'll study it.
Yes, study his legs. Hang on. I'm just going to show you right now. Get Nadine's live reaction to Jake Gyllenhaal being spotted.
We should be recording this.
We
in
are.
Short. Wow. Visually.
This is on the radio, Nadine.
What?
I know.
I thought we were having a casual conversation between friends.
Oh, here he is. Oh, yeah, there we go. Look at that.
Okay.
Spotted.
It's not that exciting. But I think in real life, I'd be a lot more excited.
Yeah, sure.
But it's just a photo of a man.
Yeah, if we saw Jake Gyllenhaal walking down Digbeth High Street,
I'd be like, whoa!
Carrying a bottle of water with some socks raised up on his legs.
Okay, we're getting quite graphic here, Paul.
Baseball cap. He's got sunglasses. Actually,
leave something to the imagination.
We not long ago saw Paul from Brum Radio walking down Digbeth High Street. He did not look
Paul.
Unlike that. Yes, a different Paul.
He looked I said he looked like Driver from Drive.
He did, didn't he?
He looked very cool.
Right, this has become very loose.
A bit too loose.
Hang on.
Where's Rory?
We've got 6 alien films to talk about. You are listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and today we are talking about the Alien franchise. Ooh. Before we get started, we need to talk about the chronology of the Alien franchise, because Nadine has somewhat of a radical... Nadine did things differently. Correct. Go on. So what order did you...
So I started with the first Alien film, because we're discounting Aliens versus Predators, because that doesn't work in this universe that we're in.
Yeah.
Because the aliens don't exist yet in Prometheus, which is the first Alien film.
So by the first Alien film, you mean Prometheus. You watched Prometheus first.
And then I watched Covenant, and then I watched Alien, and I worked my way that way. That's the way you watch the Alien films, isn't it?
If you're a psychopath.
What?
I think... Well, yeah, because I don't think... That's never the right way to watch.
How did you watch them?
Well,
in the order in which they were made?
Yes, and that's how all franchises should be watched, in the order in which they were released. Because you imagine if you watch Star Wars in chronological order, in chronological order in terms of episode 1 through 9.
Yes, that's how you watch it.
No, but it ruins the twist. It ruins Empire Strikes Back if you know that Anakin Skywalker is Darth
everybody
Vader.
Knows the twist.
No, you've got to think of the new generation. You've got to think of the next generation of little kiddies that are going to be watching this for the first time, and you can't spoil the franchise. It's like, you can't watch Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me first, because that ruins Twin Peaks.
You've got to watch every franchise in the order in which it was meant to be.
No.
Like Indiana Jones, you watch Temple of Doom first, because that's chronologically the first film.
Well, Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom being a prequel doesn't make any sense anyway. So I don't know why they made it a prequel. Because people don't talk about it as a prequel; they talk about it as a sequel.
People don't realise, because people don't look at the years, but it's a prequel, people.
It is a prequel, people, but I don't understand why.
I just like saying prequel, people.
Because it's like the treacle people. But yeah, I don't understand why, because it's just, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, because Indiana Jones is exposed to all this supernatural business in Raiders of the Lost Ark, in Temple of Doom, but then in Raiders, he's like, oh, what's all this supernatural stuff? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
For the purposes of this show, which film are we starting with?
We are going to be going in order of release.
Fine.
Okay? That is how we're going to be doing things.
If you insist.
Yes, that's right.
But you're wrong.
But of course, first of all, we need to talk about Dark Star from 1974.
Okay, I haven't watched that, so...
Have you not?
No.
You've not actually seen it?
No.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It is great. So basically, the writer of the Alien franchise, Dan O'Bannon, or one of the writers, he went to film school with John Carpenter. And they made a student film that got out of hand. And it just
as all student films do,
as they do, in a Razorhead-esque fashion, and just ballooned into this sci-fi film, which in many ways is the prototype for Alien itself, and in many ways the prototype for a lot of later sci-fi stuff. You know, Red Dwarf and all that kind of stuff, with the normal working people up in space instead of it all being very shiny and whatnot. And yeah, basically, Dark Star, they're all kind of blokes up in space, and then there's an alien that appears, but this alien is a beach ball, and it's literally a beach ball with little feet on it, and it just goes around just picking off the cast one by one, and it is just a comedy version of Alien, pretty much.
I think this is why there's an Alien franchise and not a Dark Star franchise.
Oh, I'd love to see a Dark Star franchise, to be honest. But yeah, basically,
Dark Star Romulus. Yeah,
it's it's a sci-fi comedy, pretty much. And there's also like a sentient bomb in it, and it's brilliant. There's it's good. So you've got to watch Dark Star, because that is where the Alien franchise all began. After Dark Star, Dan O'Bannon wanted to make a version of Dark Star that wasn't a comedy, because he wasn't actually fond of the beach ball alien, even though it was the best bit. So he decided that he wanted to do a serious horror film, and then Ronald Suchet, the co-writer of Alien, he at the time had the rights to Total Recall, and they met up to discuss that. But then they decided to do Alien first because it was smaller. So then Dan O'Bannon went off to work on Jodorowsky's Dune for 6 months, and then got introduced to H.R. Giger. And that is how he wound up working on the creature designs for Alien. So if Jodorowsky's Dune had been made, it's possible Alien wouldn't have happened. But if Jodorowsky's Dune hadn't been in production, then Alien wouldn't be the film that it is today. So that's an interesting little origin story, isn't it?
He also turned down work on Star Wars for Dune, which might not have been the best decision he ever made.
Yeah. What, Giger?
No, Bannon.
Oh, Bannon.
So Dan O'Bannon, in fact, here's a fun fact for you.
Okay.
Because Dan O'Bannon, if you see the special effects in Dark Star, I'm slightly confused to why all these Hollywood movies were desperate to have him on the film. But I think there was a slit scan effect he did that was very cool, that was very 2001. Like, we're talking early computer graphics here, people. But basically, if you watch Star Wars, if you watch the little graphic video of the Death Star, we need to blow it up. Remember that scene?
Yeah.
The little animation?
Yeah.
That was Dan O'Bannon.
Wow. That is a fun fact.
Yeah.
There you go. But yes, so Alien, I suppose we should give a brief summary of what Alien is.
There's an alien.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He's on a spaceship.
And it eats people.
It eats people. So basically it was one of the first, if not the first, well, other than Dark Star, it shows people in spaceships to be just working class people, just blue collar, getting on with their jobs. And of course, Harry Dean Stanton is the ultimate example of this.
Trucker in space.
Yes, truckers in space. And so they're on a spaceship called the Nostromo, and it's not shiny on this spaceship. It's all dirty and run down and broken. They go down to investigate a distress beacon, and then
never do that.
Yeah, never do that. It's always a bad idea.
Yeah.
And then they wind up with an alien on board, and
we won't spoil how to discover the alien.
No.
If you haven't watched it and you know nothing about it, where have you been?
Yeah.
But the reveal of the alien is quite something.
It's incredible. It's
iconic.
Incredible. And it is one of those. I think that is one of the reasons that Alien is such a well loved and remembered film. Is it's just full of iconic moments that just at the time. Imagine seeing that scene.
I wish I could have watched that. Unfortunately, I've seen Spaceballs before I watched Alien.
Oh dear!
So it kind of spoilt it for me. But if you haven't watched Alien, you probably know what we're talking about because it's one of those moments, those cinematic moments that have just become part of the culture of just indelible.
Yeah.
It's like dancing and singing in the rain. It's one of those kind of moments that everybody knows.
And that alien comes out of Fred Astaire's chest.
Yeah, but the ship...
Sorry, carry on.
The ship is a character in the film. And Ridley Scott worked very closely with his production design team. It was actually a bit of a nightmare, actually, because it was people were forever banging their heads on this labyrinthine set. And he did a lot of his own camera work. But yeah, Ridley'd come on board. He'd done one film before, The Duelists, with Harvey Keitel, which was nothing like Alien. It was a costume drama set in Napoleonic France. But he'd seen Star Wars, which is one of his Letterboxd top 4.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I want a piece of that. I can do that.
Well, apparently he was depressed for 3 months after watching Star Wars because he just thought it was so good.
I know that feeling. No, but there's sometimes when you see a film and it does everything that you want to do as a filmmaker, and you're like, well, there's no point now, is there? And you could definitely see the influence of Star Wars on the production design. A lot of Egyptian influence as well in the ship design. But yeah, lots of production designers they brought on board for that, including Giger, who was on board before Ridley. Dan had actually given him $1,000, I think, to just make some stuff up. He was like, draw some stuff, mate.
Yeah.
And paid him with his own money. But the other producers on board, they felt that, without a director on board, they didn't want to get too into visualizing it. They were worried, directors should come on and put their own stamp on it. But Ridley loved his stuff. He'd seen his work previously, and the rest is history. He designed much of the iconic Alien.
Yeah, the xenomorph.
Yeah.
Or xenomorph.
And the facehugger.
Yes, which sounds a lot nicer than it is.
Yeah, apparently originally he wanted it to be completely translucent, which they couldn't quite do. But when I say Giger designed it, it was a collaboration. There were other people working on that film as well. So they all added bits and bobs. So I think originally they wanted tentacles on this beast, but they ended up with these kind of spidery fingers instead, which looked even creepier. Yeah.
And apparently the alien egg, that was one of the last things to be designed in the production. That wasn't even when they had the teaser trailers released. It was just a hen's egg that they used, and that's still the imagery that's used for a lot of the alien marketing. It's just this. It's not actually the proper facehugger, the proper xenomorph egg. It is a hen's egg.
Oh, I didn't realise that. Oh.
So there you go. It's interesting, isn't it? So yeah.
Did we explain what a xenomorph and a facehugger are? Because the alien, we won't spoil certain moments, but the alien goes through several stages of evolution. So it starts off as an egg, then it's a facehugger, then it's like a mini xenomorph, and then it becomes a big grown-up xenomorph.
Although it's safe to say, as the franchise goes on, the life cycle of the xenomorph, the alien,
evolves.
It gets very confusing. There's various mutations and there's various.
But this is classic original
this
Alien.
Is original Alien, yeah.
But it's the interesting thing about this one. It's the only one that I feel is like a full-on horror
Yeah.
For most of the fan. This is a horror film. This is like a slasher movie in space, basically. Except instead of a masked maniac, it's an alien.
Yeah. In fact, Ridley Scott has said that Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a big influence on Alien. So yeah,
I can see that, definitely.
Yeah, it is very much a slasher. Yeah.
And the interesting thing as well is we know it's a slasher because we've got a final girl.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Ripley.
Yes, we haven't even really mentioned Ripley yet, and she is the star of the franchise.
But when you watch the first Alien film, you don't know she's going to be the star because it's kind of an ensemble to begin with. And interestingly, Dan O'Bannon and his co-writer had written all the characters unisex, and it said that in the script.
Interchangeable,
But neither of them actually thought that Ripley would be a woman and be the main character. In fact, I don't think Ripley was the original name of the character.
No, they changed all of the names from the original script because basically Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett did the first draft, but then the producers, Walter Hill and David Giler, whose production is like Brandywine or whatever, production company, they came on board and produced all of the franchise.
So they're the real deal. The alien masterminds.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, they came on and did loads of rewrites, which people thought were worse, but they're the ones who introduced a synthetic character.
Yeah, the synthetic person or robot.
A robot.
There was actually a dispute over the writing credits, and the WGA had to be called in. So that's the Writers Guild of America. And everyone was fine in the end. I think because David Giler and Walter Hill worked as a duo, they would have had to have written 70% of it to get a writing credit. So yeah, it's
very confusing.
And also because they were on board as producers.
Yeah, it's very odd, all this WGA stuff. But anyway, but it's also got one of the reasons that we love Ripley is because she saves the cat. She saves the cat.
They have a cat on board.
Yes, that's right.
And the cat's also in danger from the alien. But Ripley has her priorities right. And she makes sure she's safe. A lot of humans die. But the cat is okay.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say that? I'm going to say...
No, you can say
it. But she saves the cat. And it's a big deal in Hollywood because there's actually a book called Save the Cat. And it's a screenwriting book. And it's the adage is that, if you want people to like your character, get them to do something like that.
But yeah, Ripley just became one of the biggest, franchise characters.
Could have been in our strong female character episode.
Yes.
So that's Alien.
Yeah.
Did very well at the box office. Had an 11 million budget. Which is incidentally the same budget of Star Wars, the original Star Wars. Did very well. I think made over 100 million.
Yeah.
And so they thought, let's do that again.
Yes. So,
and they upped the budget.
Indeed. And apparently Ridley Scott was not offered the job at all because he was just such a nightmare to work with. It's so difficult. So we're like, let's not even ask him. Let's get someone else.
He's a perfectionist.
Yes, very much so. Well, yeah, that was one of the things. Certainly not in those days. He was not known for his actor welfare, and he's
much better now.
Yeah, he's much better now.
All the actors say he's great.
Yeah, they certainly do on the DVD extras, don't they? He's so nice.
I think he was telling them to kind of antagonize each other and stuff on the original Alien film to get the performance he wanted, which isn't perhaps the best thing to do.
But anyway, so yeah, Ridley was out for the next Alien film.
And James Cameron was in.
Jimbo Cameron.
Which is kind of mad because he hadn't really done anything at that point.
Well, no, because his scripts had done well. That's the thing. So he'd written... The Terminator hadn't been made yet by the time Aliens was greenlit with Cameron on board. So Terminator came out in 1984, but it was around 82 that they started work, that he signed on to Aliens. And that was mainly off the back of... his Terminator screenplay, and he also wrote the script for Rambo 2 as well. And of course, he directed Piranha 2.
Classic.
But then I think he was fired from that. So it's quite amazing that he wound up with this amazing.
Well, not only did he end up with Aliens, but a $70 million budget, like 6 times the budget of Alien.
Yeah, it's mad. And considering the studio were kind of semi-reluctant about it anyway, like it's mad that it wound up with that. But apparently there's a story that the pitch meeting for Aliens, James Cameron came in, wrote alien on a whiteboard, then he wrote the S on, and then he turned the S into a dollar symbol. And I bet that didn't happen. It's just too good a story.
I think that sounds exactly like James Cameron's me.
It does. It sounds too perfect a story. I don't know. But yeah.
But I think, we have to say, Ridley Scott wasn't given a budget that big until Gladiator. So that says something there. So obviously he's got the gift of the gab, Mr. Cameron.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, by the time he made Aliens, he had made Terminator at that point.
So he had a bit more clout then.
But he'd already been greenlit. So and the difference is, as Alien was this horror kind of slasher in space, Aliens is a big dumb action movie.
Yes, it is.
With big dumb action characters.
With Marines, man.
The most undisciplined Marines ever.
Yeah.
I mean, how these guys hadn't been court-martialed, I don't know.
Yeah.
Al Matthews, though, who played Sergeant Apone, had a military background, which you can tell when I was watching it. I thought, you know what? He reminds me of the guy out of Full Metal Jacket. You could just tell that guy had discipline, but the rest of them, that Bill Paxton,
not so much.
I don't know how he made it through boot camp.
Oh, but Bill Paxton is so good at it. Like you said he was the most annoying character, but I think he is he is the heart of the film. Game over, man. Game over. Oh, it's just great. And of course, we got Michael Biehn coming back to a James Cameron film. Michael Biehn from Terminator.
Terminator as a kind of love interest that sort of just doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
And a child,
Carrie Henn,
to manipulate the audience.
Yes, of course.
to give Ridley, because Ridley doesn't have a backstory. She doesn't have any loved ones apart from Jonesy the cat.
Yeah.
So we give her a child as a surrogate child for Ridley and a sort of love interest just to soften her up a bit. Yeah,
because Jonesy you do see Jonesy in Aliens, don't you? He just gets left on the base.
It's not an integral part of Aliens.
Yeah.
But interestingly, Sigourney Weaver got $1 million payday for this, and they wanted Cameron to write a script without Ripley, and he said no. Ripley is Alien. And so that was a big boost for her. And also, she got an Oscar nomination. It was the first time a female actress had been nominated for an action role.
Oh.
So it was a big deal. So maybe giving her some loved ones was the way to go.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I have to say, this is, and I'm going to upset a lot of people, this is one of my least favourite.
Oh.
Some of the characters are just too dumb for me. I'm sorry. Like, there's levels. I know in horror movies and action movies, a certain lack of intelligence is sometimes required to move the plot forward.
Yes, certainly.
But some of these characters are just so one-dimensional and ridiculous. And Ripley's the only sane character as ever. I think we should maybe quarantine.
Yes.
No. Or I think we should do this. No, I mean, they're mansplaining to her a lot in this. Yeah. But she can drive a big mech forklift suit, and she knows what she's doing. And she
maybe she uses that later on in the film.
It may come up. I was waiting for it. I was like, is that ever going to come up again?
Oh, there we go. And of course, you say Ripley's the most sane person, but we also have, once again, a synthetic character in the form of Lance Henriksen's Bishop. And great performance.
One thing we didn't mention, so we talked about the aliens and we talked about the synthetic characters. We haven't talked about the real antagonist of these movies.
Yes, Weyland-Yutani.
Yes, the big corporation.
Yeah, basically the whole franchise is about don't trust corporations. They're bad.
They're bad. Where did they get that from? Honestly, though, in the 80s, that was quite... forward thinking.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Because Ridley Scott himself said, in the future, it won't be governments ruling the world. It'll be corporations.
And that's the case, isn't it?
He's right.
He's right. There. That's right.
We're living in the alien world. But I think, it's really important. They're the real puppet masters pulling the strings, and they're the real force of the evil in these movies.
Yeah, because basically the thrust of the drive of the whole franchise is about this corporation trying to harness and weaponize the alien species. So they're always trying to protect the aliens so that they
no
can.
No matter how many people it eats.
Mm-hmm. It's for the good of humanity that they've studied the aliens and make more aliens and do all these experiments and stuff. So of course, Ripley's trying to convince them to kill the aliens and just wipe them off the face of the planet. But the corporation have some other ideas. Yes.
It was named Weyland-Yutani, apparently after British Leyland.
Okay, yeah.
And they wanted a Japanese name like Toyota or something, and I think it was named after the writer's neighbour.
Oh.
Or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. He was Japanese. So
good.
That's where the name comes from.
But yes, I mean, Aliens is a very good film.
Is it?
But as an action film, it is a classic. But I have to agree, I am with you in that I cannot get past James Cameron's obsession with gung-ho militia. It is he loves, and that's my main problem with the Avatar films. In fact, it's the problem with the Avatar films. You just got all these just bros and just like
the brodom is just insane in this.
The testosterone, like it's
off
just
the charts. Even and that's just the women.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, exactly. Yes, of course. We've got Vasquez, who is a very testosterone-y woman, but also something that wouldn't go down well today is Vasquez is a Latina character played by a Jewish actress in brownface.
I did not know that.
Jeanette Goldstein. So she had brown contact lenses and darkened her skin and played a Latina. And imagine doing that today. No.
Thanks. But if you like your mech, it reminds me of an anime actually. Especially, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but there is a fight between a person in a mech suit and an alien, person in a suit, alien suit. And it's giving very Godzilla vibes. Yeah. And those kinds of things, really slow, giant kind of fight. it doesn't do it for me at all. Yeah. But if you like that kind of thing, it's giving me Patlabors. Yeah. If you've ever seen that. But if you like your mech, if you like your big giant guns, that's another annoying thing. But
there's a lot of guns. Yeah.
There's a lot of guns, especially in situations where they're like, we definitely should not use any guns. And then they just use the guns. Yeah. And you're like, that's stupid.
James Cameron likes guns.
Anyway.
I mean, I don't think I hate it as much as you. Well, you don't hate it, but I don't know. It sounds like you maybe do, but I just don't, because so many people say that Aliens is
better than
Alien. It's just
they're wrong.
They are wrong. But the thing is, it's a different film, and they do say.
I mean, it's a bigger budget, so it's got that going for it.
Yeah.
Bigger sets. I mean, they filmed in some kind of power plant or something.
Yeah, Acton Lane Power Station.
Which was used for
Tim Burton's Batman, yes.
Yeah, and they apparently didn't bother tidying up after filming Aliens. So when the Batman crew came in, there was all this weird alien stuff around.
That James Cameron. Well, yes, so the thing is, it sounds like, I'm not surprised they didn't tidy it, because it sounds like a very, very chaotic production. So, I mean, Cameron left 2 or 3 times before the film even started filming. But then when they started filming it, James Cameron, being from Canada, kind of clashed with the British crew, who insisted on taking tea breaks.
What?
And he did not understand this.
What is this tea?
Yeah, so this led to all sorts of tensions on set. And then he had some issues with his assistant director, who just kept ignoring him and just doing what he wanted anyway. So he wound up firing the assistant director, but then that made the crew walk off set. So the entire crew quit. And then they had to get them all together and just go, right, we need to work through this. And so they had a meeting, and then they sort of reconciled, and then the atmosphere remained frosty throughout the rest of the shoot, but they finished the film. But yeah, when filming concluded at Pinewood, apparently Cameron told the crew, this has been a long and difficult shoot, fraught by many problems, but the one thing that kept me going through it all was the certain knowledge that one day I would drive out the gate of Pinewood and never come back, and that you sorry would still be here.
Might have to bleep that out.
I will. But yeah, he described most of the crew as lazy, insolent, and arrogant. And it's coming from James Cameron. The thing is, James Cameron sounds like such a nightmare to work with.
Yes.
No wonder someone tried to poison him on the set of Titanic.
Well, yes.
Not that I'm condoning.
That.
Not that I'm condoning poisoning people.
No.
But yeah, someone.
But yeah,
spiked
he's got a rep.
He does. He does have a rep. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they left things in a bit of a mess.
I'm not surprised. It was so expensive now I've heard that.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to say, some of the effects as well, it's one of those things. Most of the effects in the original Alien are practical, and most of the effects stand up really well. A lot of these effects are practical as well, but I don't think we start seeing some early sort of green screen and stuff like that, and it just doesn't quite stand up to me. And I have to say, the Alien Queen... Just naff. I wasn't impressed.
Well, we should say, actually, because H.R. Giger, who did the designs in the original film, he wanted to come back for Aliens, but he was contractually tied to Poltergeist 2 with another studio. So,
shows, unfortunately.
Oh, really? Well, but it's the legendary Stan Winston who was brought in to do all the alien stuff. So lots of people will think this is sacrilege, what you're saying
legendary
here, Nadine. From Aliens. And
Alien.
Aliens, but also,
well, he's legendary from the film that
and Terminator. He did the Terminator robots and all that kind of stuff, and various other things as well. He's famous.
Not Giger, is he?
He's not Giger, no. Oh, and Stan Winston worked on the Jurassic Park films as well, and Predator as well.
There's definitely something Jurassic Parky about this idea of, now I know this thing has killed many people, but we might be able to monetize it.
Yeah.
So I think we should keep going.
That's true.
But that's Aliens for you.
That's Aliens. They do say there's two types of people in the world, those who like Alien and those who like Aliens. And I think it's safe to say that Nadine and I are in the alien camp.
Yeah.
But you can't deny, in terms of a sequel, like, it's amazing because it is the fact that it just did something completely different in basically a completely different genre. You've got to give it credit for that. That is very impressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a game changer of the film. Whilst we aren't as up on it as a lot of people are, you can't deny its cultural significance. You are listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and today we are talking about the Alien franchise. So we've just talked about Alien and Aliens, and now we are going to talk about Alien Cubed. Yeah, which is appropriately named because, one alien cubed is one alien, yeah?
I'll take your word for that.
Because 1 times 1 times 1 is 1.
Not if you're talking to Terence Howard, who has reinvented mathematics, apparently. But that's another story for another show.
Yeah, that's another episode, I think.
Yeah. Terrestriology, he calls it.
Yes. So, whilst Aliens had lots of aliens in it...
So that's why it's called Aliens.
It's called multiple aliens, so they called it Aliens. Mm-hmm. This one takes it back to basics and just has one alien again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Alien 3 is possibly one of the most maligned sequels of all time. And it had an incredibly troubled production. Like, it went through various different iterations before it came to be made. So originally the film was going to focus on Hicks from Aliens, Michael Bean's character in Aliens, with Ripley just being a cameo role. And it was going to explore the Weyland-Yutani Corporation's desire to use aliens as biological weapons. At the time, Rennie Harlin, director of Die Hard 2 and Deep Blue Sea, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, he was on board for a little bit. And then there was a script from cyberpunk author William Gibson, but it wasn't very popular with the studio. But then that script was later made into a comic years later. And then there's an audiobook of the script that you can hear on Audible, apparently. And then we had Eric Red, who wrote The Hitcher and Near Dark. He had a go. And that would have involved the aliens attacking a small town in a biosphere and introduce new aliens. And then at some point, David Towie, I don't know, changed it to a prison planet. But then Vincent Ward, who is a Kiwi director who he made The Navigator, a medieval odyssey. If you've ever seen that.
No.
Oh, right. It's very good.
You meant The Other Navigator.
What's The Other Navigator?
Space film.
No, it's not the space film.
Okay.
And then he was going to turn it into a film that was about a load of monks on this wooden moon.
Okay.
Yeah, and then basically Alien and Ripley are going to be a form of temptation. So that was sent by God to tempt them, because obviously it's a planet full of men. And then Ripley comes down as a woman, and they're like, "Oh, we need a woman. We better control ourselves." And then there's this notion that the alien was the devil. And to be honest, it sounds like a really cool idea. But then.
They kind of mashed up a couple of those.
Exactly. So what we wound up with was this kind of hybrid.
Monk prisoners.
Yeah, exactly. So Vincent Ward was brought on board. He suggested the wooden monastery thing, and then that idea was worked on for ages. And then, but the thing is, this wooden monastery idea was being worked on at the same time as David Thowry was working on his Prison Planet idea. And then he heard through the grapevine that someone else was doing a script for Alien 3, and then he left the project. So, and then they were like, we've got 2 half scripts.
Yeah. What do we do? Do we start from scratch?
Exactly. Mash them together. But then Fox, so Vincent Ward at that point was just on board, and then Fox asked for a load of changes. They wanted to turn the monastery into an oil refinery and make the monks prisoners. And then Vincent Ward was like, no. And then they were like, you're fired. So that was that. And so
then Fincher stepped in.
So then Fincher stepped in.
I mean, this was David Fincher's first movie.
Yes. So this was David Fincher, who'd only really he'd made music videos.
But very good music videos for the likes of Madonna.
Yeah.
But really, he was the kind of golden child of the music video world. It was a period where Hollywood was starting to look at music videos and go, ooh, maybe some of those guys could direct some of our movies.
Yeah. And then that also led to a lot of films that should have been music videos.
Yeah.
But that's another thing.
Yeah,
so,
like Alien Cubed.
Yeah. They started filming at Pinewood without a finished script. It was a tumultuous production. Yeah, it's safe to say that the result is not something that people are particularly fond on.
It should have worked. It had a lot of stuff going for it, though. I mean, it had a stacked cast. Charles Dance, Paul McGann, Brian Glover, Danny Webb, Lance Henriksen.
Yeah, but briefly.
But yeah, just Phil Davis, many, many recognisable, a lot of British people.
Yes, a lot of very, very Cockney prisoners in this film.
I can't say on the radio, but they use the W word an awful lot in this film.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
Yeah, for an American film, it's quite unusual. No, a different word. But actually, I think the first act is not bad.
Yeah.
One second, though. Without spoiling the second film, we talked about the things that they did to try and humanise Ripley and give her a bit more depth. All of those things are thrown out the window for this one.
Yes.
Without giving too much away, we're kind of starting from scratch. So Ripley has a new love interest in this.
Yes.
In the shape of Charles Dance.
Which is a very strange subplot.
It feels very shoehorned in.
Yeah.
It feels very I don't know. It just doesn't. You're thinking, Ripley, is that the first thing you're going to do when you arrive on a prison planet?
It's the way that she's really just going for it. She seduces Charles Dance, and she's just like,
well, he's a monk.
Yeah, but right away she's just like, hello.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what is this about? Well, yes. But still, it's a very odd, it seems strange for her character that she'd be so, she's trapped on this prison planet, there's an alien running around,
but
she's
saying,
like, Charles
watch
Dance,
out for these men.
Yeah.
They're all very dangerous.
Yeah.
Especially around women.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know what I'm going to do? Sleep with Charles Dance.
That's right.
But, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
Really.
No, it doesn't.
But Charles Dance is probably one of the best characters in it. So, when he's on screen, it's not bad.
Yeah.
The production design is great. It's very 12 Monkeys. It's given me a lot of Gilliam-esque vibes. Very grungy. Very Finchery.
Yes.
That kind of, grimy, greasy, grungy thing that he loves so much. THX, giving me a bit of THX vibes. Everybody shaved their head.
Mm-hmm.
Ripley shaves her head.
Because of the lice.
Mm-hmm. But you know, when a female action character shaves her head in a movie, it's some badassery's going to go down.
For sure.
It's a big deal. But quite possibly the worst of all the...
It is.
Despite all those great elements of production design and cinematography and acting and, you know, it just, I think, like you say, the script just wasn't there.
Yeah, it wasn't. But the thing is, I do think it is so maligned that going back to watch it again, you do go, oh, it's really not that bad, because I admire that it does something. It doesn't try to just do more aliens. It takes it back to basics and just tries to do another small horror film.
It's a prison drama now.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting, you know, philosophical stuff kind of underlying it. It's just not really fleshed out properly.
Fincher isn't known for his sci-fi.
No.
In fact, this is his only sci-fi film, unless you're counting Benjamin Button. I don't think we can.
Yeah.
But he's not a world builder. Not like Scott. So I think one of the big problems with this film is the lack of geography. So it's all in these kind of liminal corridor spaces that we're not quite sure how they're connected to each other. So that doesn't help. Then we got these two completely different stories that have been mashed together. Characters making decisions that don't seem to make any kind of sense.
No.
And lack motivation. And then once we get past the first act is quite strong. It's not bad, really.
Yeah.
You know, there's something there, but it just loses it, I think, halfway through.
It does. And also, the final act kind of turns into almost like a Scooby-Doo episode, doesn't it, really? They're all just kind of running around and like trying to set traps for the aliens and then just going, yeah, it's a bit of an amusing third act in that way.
Yeah, and I don't know if it really respects the character of
Ripley, yeah.
Yeah, I think, like I said, a lot of anything that we've built up, I mean, she wasn't fully fleshed out in either of the other two movies, but anything that we know about her is kind of thrown out of the window at the beginning of this film, and we're not really given much more to replace it with.
And also, I think what really annoyed a lot of people is just how unceremonious, because basically some characters survive till the end of Aliens, and then the beginning of this film just unceremoniously kills them off in the most just dismissive way. Like, it just basically comes up with a thing on screen just saying dead. And there's an autopsy scene, which almost seems to be provoking the audience by just going, this is your beloved character, we're cutting them up. And it reminded me of the beginning of Deadpool, where the new Deadpool and Wolverine, because the film starts with Deadpool digging up the corpse of Logan and then desecrating it for about 10 minutes. And that's the first thing I thought of when I rewatched Alien 3 recently, is just you're doing a Deadpool. It's just like,
Well, we don't, I think people don't like that. I mean, look at Star Wars. You can't, I get wanting to put your own stamp on it and all of that, but, you know, I don't think directors sometimes realise how emotionally invested people become about the characters that they love. And it's not that they can never be killed off or, you know, exit in any way. But if you really care about a character, you want that death to mean something, for one, which these deaths don't really in this film. And you want it to be done in a way that is, you know, fitting for that character. And again, you know, it's kind of like he dies off screen kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I can't remember.
Poochie died on the way to his home planet.
Yeah. So it's like, I can see why people would have been peed off. If you haven't got all that, if you're coming to it fresh and you're not as invested in these characters, you probably won't care as much. But I can imagine if you wait in the year, I can't wait to see what happens with my favourite characters. Yeah. And then they're not in the film.
Yeah, you just get this miserable film on a drab
and they're not
prison.
Even, their deaths don't mean anything. I can see why that would pee people off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's got that issue. And then, of course, the effects, the alien effects, there's so many shots in this that just look really shaky. They never quite got it right. And they went through various experiments. And apparently at one point, they tried putting a whippet in an alien costume, but it was so funny that they just never used it. But that must have been a fun day on set.
Well, we do get a new mutation of the alien.
We do, which is cool.
So we talked about the aliens' is it evolutionary process or
life cycle?
Yeah, we talked about the aliens' life cycle early on. But what we forgot to mention is, because the alien is a parasite, what it morphs into depends on what it inseminates.
Yeah.
So without
in this film anyway.
Yeah. Well, without giving too much away, the alien inseminates another creature.
What creature?
Not a human.
No, what creature? Tell me.
A dog.
Oh, so you did watch the theatrical cut?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. I thought maybe the director's cut would be on on Disney Plus, because it's an ox in the director's cut. Yeah, I don't understand. Anyway,
so it's interesting. So there is a director's cut. In your opinion, is it a work print?
It's not a director's cut because David Fincher wanted nothing to do with it. It is an assembly cut put together, and then it's not. I rewatched the theatrical version recently, so I've got a very distant memory of the director's cut.
Which is better?
I mean, people say the assembly cut.
Okay.
But I don't know, because it adds a lot more. There's a whole bit with Paul McGann. There's a whole other act basically going on within it.
So it'd be interesting to watch. So if you don't like the theatrical cut, maybe give the assembly cut a watch. Yeah. It might change your mind.
But so Alien 3, definitely a very, very flawed film.
Yeah.
But I
has
think
its moments.
Yeah, I don't think it deserves the hate that it gets. And considering how troubled the production it was, it's a solid film that at least give it credit for doing something different and not just taking the safe bet. It's safe to say David Fincher he's not a fan, and he said in an interview with The Guardian, apparently, no one hated it more than me. To this day, no one hates it more than me. And he also said that after making the film, he didn't read a script for a year and a half after that. And he said, I thought I'd rather die of colon cancer than make another movie, which sounds a bit hyperbolic. David Fincher, doesn't it?
He's such a provocateur.
Because it's not that bad, David, but I understand why you're upset.
It's not that great, though. Let's face it.
No.
But moving on.
Time for Alien Resurrection.
Woo!
And again, a long pre-production. So originally, Danny Boyle was approached to do Resurrection. Obviously, that didn't happen. Joss Whedon was brought in, of course, writer of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and of Firefly and Serenity and all that kind of stuff. And oh my goodness, you can tell, because this is...
There's a lot of weird humour in it that doesn't quite land.
Yeah, it's tonally, Resurrection is very distinct from the other Alien films, because this is basically a black comedy. There's some very silly humor in it, possibly too silly for the universe, and it even has some really funny deaths. Like, it even downplays the scariness of the deaths by making a joke out of them, and that's an interesting decision. And once again, it's a film that I won't go into without spoiling it.
We get a very different version of Ripley in this, don't we?
Without spoiling it, it once again opens by completely diminishing the impact of the last film.
Exactly. It's like, remember the end of the last film? Forget it.
Forget about it. Yeah.
But directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet.
Yes.
Of Amélie fame.
Yeah, that's bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah. The production design in this is really quite fantastic.
Yeah, there's some great creature stuff and all sorts.
Yeah, and just that world that he creates is amazing. Like I said, the humour sometimes feels out of place. And apparently Joss Whedon wrote 5 different versions of the final act of this film, none of which ended up in the film.
Yeah. So originally there was going to be a third act on Earth. So they keep talking about bringing the Alien franchise to Earth, but Sigourney Weaver was never a fan of that idea, so it just never wound up happening. But that'd be good. We have a kind of Sigourney Weaver replacement in this, because Sigourney is in this film, but then we also have Winona Ryder.
Yeah. And I do wonder if this film had been a big hit, would Winona have carried the torch onto future films?
Well, yes, because the film does end with the potential for that to be a thing, maybe. Or maybe Winona Ryder dies. I don't know.
But yeah, I wonder if that was a thought at some point. Ripley, without getting into too much spoilers.
She's a different character.
She's a different person in this. She's a new woman.
Yep.
She's very overpowered in this.
Yes.
She's Super Ripley.
Super Ripley.
And she's described as having something emotional autism, which I'm not quite sure what that means, but I guess that means that she's different in the way that she reacts to things emotionally, perhaps like an autistic person. I don't know, but completely different Ripley, but she looks like Ripley. So that's interesting.
Well, that's part of the reason why she came back, because she didn't want to come back originally, and then
do the same old thing.
So, but she came back under these circumstances because it would allow her to do something very different.
Yeah. I don't hate this one.
No,
it has its moments. I didn't enjoy the comic touches so much. I thought it looked great.
Yeah.
Some disability representation for the first time, I think, in the Alien franchise. So we get a character. A disabled character in this story. Yeah, an interesting ragtag bunch of humans. That's the thing. Each time as well, it's a different genre and it's a different group of people that get eaten by the alien one by one.
Yeah.
So I think this time we've got a kind of ragtag band of kind of misfit sort of thieves, are they? Or kind of rebels?
Kind of, they're like salvagers or scavengers. So
we start off, we've got the truckers in space. Then in the second one, it's the Marines. In the third one, it's these prisoner monks. And this one, we've got some military scientist types and some scavengers. Improved queen design, I thought. I thought some of the creature designs were quite good.
Yeah, there's some radical stuff in here.
Yeah, there's some really nice visual moments in this.
Yeah. Do you know, apparently, as they produced the film, a lot of the new alien creatures had visible genitalia. And they produced the film with this. And then Fox were uncomfortable. And then even Junet eventually was just like, even for a Frenchman, it is too much. And then they were removed in post. So as if they got that far, I was like, okay, actually, maybe this is disgusting.
Yeah.
That's a factoid.
Wow. It's interesting. It felt like it was trying to reboot the franchise. So Romulus isn't the first reboot, let's face it, this franchise has seen. But it didn't quite revitalise it. And it did lay dormant for some time after this one. Yeah.
I do think it is a strong film in that I don't think any of the Alien films are actually bad. I think, Nadine definitely disagrees. But yeah, going back to watch this one.
I think after 3, it was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it is inventive and it is, the humour doesn't work, but it is certainly entertaining.
It's nice to see Ripley interacting with another woman. Yes, there are other women in the other Alien films, but this is the first time that I think there's a major supporting character alongside Ripley, who is also female. So that, I think, gives it a different sort of dynamic that we haven't seen hitherto.
Indeed. And of course, we must mention the fun fact that everyone talks about with this film. And do you know that? What I'm going to say?
Tell me, and yes. I'll tell you if I know it.
The bit where Ripley throws a basketball into the hoop from behind her. Yeah. Apparently, Sigourney Weaver, she practiced for weeks to do that, and she got it on the first take.
Of course she did. And, she's Sigourney Weaver.
But Ron Perlman nearly ruined it by reacting like he broke character, and he was just like, almost immediately after she did it. But thankfully they were able to cut around that. But yeah, because the ball goes out of shot here, so you could think it's a trick, but no, she did that. So there you go. I know Skip would want me to mention that fact, but yes, it's a fun fact. But yeah, it's a tonal shift. It's really silly, but it is very entertaining and inventive. So
and it looks great.
Yeah. So there you go. But yes. So after Resurrection, I mean, it did okay, but pretty much that was it for Alien for a while. There was a period where James Cameron and Ridley Scott were working on a fifth film. And that could have been interesting. But then the Alien versus Predator films happened, which, of course, as far as we're concerned in this discussion, they do not exist. They are not canon. And of course, if you take into the mythology that we're about to discuss with Prometheus and Alien Covenant, the Alien versus Predator films do not make any sense in terms of the timeline because they're set in the present day, which canonically... well, in the past now. In the past now, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. 20 years ago, Alien versus Predator was. In fact, I remember going to see it at the cinema when I was 14 years old, and that was the first time I ever got drunk. That's a fun anecdote. I will say, I've only seen the first one, but I quite enjoyed it at the time. I mean, it's stupid. Was fun. Yeah. But it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't just overcomplicate. Yeah, because there's xenomorphs in it, and of course we discover that the xenomorphs don't exist at that point in the timeline, canonically, according to Prometheus and Covenant. Yeah. But anyway, James Cameron walks away from the Alien franchise after hearing about Alien versus Predator because he thought it was the stupidest idea ever and would destroy the franchise. He later said that he didn't think it was that bad. It wasn't that bad. Yeah, but it was fine. In a franchise that includes Alien 3, it was fine. Yeah, indeed. But yes, Prometheus, quite a different Alien film. Is it an Alien film, Paul? Well, yes and no. That's and therein lies the issue with Prometheus, I think, because it's such a solid. There's some really great sci-fi ideas. So yeah, we should say Ridley Scott is back. Ridley Scott is back to the Alien franchise. About bloody time. Aye. And he had some big ideas. So basically, he wanted to explore creation and where people came from, where aliens came from. Who is God? And he wanted to explore themes about artificial intelligence and religion and all sorts. And there's some just some small little ideas like that. There's some weighty stuff. But there was a period so that basically it was going to be more of a direct Alien sequel, and then the studio were like a bit reluctant. They were like, "Oh, actually, can we make this not so alien?" Because they were worried that an Alien film wouldn't actually do so well. So they were like, "Maybe not make it so alien-y." And then you just wind up with something that is neither an Alien sequel, but it's also not its own thing either. And that is possibly the issue with these films. So there's no xenomorphs in Prometheus. None at all. No. Not even at the end? No, that's a neomorph. Okay. We don't see the... If you like your xenomorph, you're going to be very disappointed. Yeah, exactly. Watch Covenant instead. But we'll get to that. So, yes. So it lacks an alien. It lacks the alien. It lacks... So it's not alien. Because it's just called Prometheus. It's not called Alien Prometheus. But it does... So Ridley Scott says that Prometheus has some of the DNA of the Alien franchise. Quite literally, I think. Yes, quite literally. So, and also, but he specifically says it's got the DNA of the original film and not the sequels. Yes. So yes, but we do see the infamous space jockey from the first film, which is this giant kind of alien walrus thing sitting in a big chair, and that's what they see in the first Alien film, and that is alluded to. So there's loads of elements of Alien in there, definitely, and it purports to be an origin story for the Alien films. But yes, in many ways, it's its own thing. Yeah. So I felt like watching this now. I feel like there's a lot of influence perhaps on Arrival by Villeneuve. Yes. And we know Denis is a Scott fan. Yeah. Because Blade Runner is probably in his letterbox top 4 as well. Yes, absolutely. And he also directed Blade Runner 2049. Yeah. And I believe he worked with John Spates, who wrote on Prometheus. Also wrote Dune. And Dune 2. Oh, cool. Yes. As well as Passengers. Doctor Strange. Oh, you wrote Passengers? Yes. Wow, interesting. So a little bit of DNA crossover there. So I do feel there's definitely some kind of
arrival. It's just that the grey clouds and that spaceship at the beginning, giving very much Arrival by Denis Villeneuve. So it's very beautiful, I have to say.
It's gorgeous.
It's one of the most beautiful alien films, if we can call it an alien film.
Yeah, for sure.
But by far, I mean, and in terms of, again, Ridley Scott's a world builder. So he builds this beautiful alien planet world. And that's mostly what he goes. There's a lot of world building in this. There's a lot of mythology in this. There isn't quite a motor to the plot in the way that there is in most of the alien films, where it's this alien that's just killing people off. Not that we don't get people getting killed off in this.
Yeah, certainly.
But it takes its time. It's mythologizing.
Yeah.
The other writer on this film, of course, you may know.
Yeah, Damon Lindelof, who wrote on Lost.
Yes.
And that is learning that fact makes you wonder, oh, okay, maybe this isn't as clever as it purports to be, because, yes, of course, that is a criticism of Lost, is it kind of throws out all these ideas but never really knows what it's actually talking about.
Well,
I think
one thing I do have issue with this, and I don't know how much to give away here, so you can please me.
Yeah.
So we're not we're pre-aliens. We're on planet Earth still, but we've got questions. Who are we? Where do we come from? And that's how we get started on this galactic journey.
Yes.
Now, this might have been a fresh and exciting idea in the 1970s.
Yes.
But it's a bit Chariots of the Gods.
Right.
This idea. We've seen it a number of times. You know, the old aliens coming to Earth in the olden days and you know,
building
messing about with the old humans and all of that. So it feels like, for me, one of the things that lets this film down is if you've ever watched you know, the History Channel, is it?
Right, yeah.
If you've ever watched any documentary on the History Channel and they're like, you know, them pyramids, aliens.
Yeah.
It does give a bit of those vibes.
Yeah.
It's got more going for it, though. There's a bit more, there's a lot more. I think this is the first alien franchise film that we can really call a drama. There's some moments. There's a wonderful scene, and I wish there was a bit more of this, but there's a wonderful scene early on where they're watching a Weyland-Yutani video, and there's just a shot of Charlize Theron, who's in this. This is a stacked cast again.
Yeah, Charlize.
One of the best. And Michael Fassbender. And we cut to their faces at specific points in this video, and it just says so much without having to say anything, you know, verbally. And I like that. And we get a lot more drama in this, a lot more characterization and the character relationships. Stacked cast again, though. We got Idris Elba.
Idris Elba doing a southern drawl.
And he's good at accents, but I don't think he quite pulls this one off, unfortunately.
And then we've also got Sean Harris doing Sean Harris, who I've never seen be anything other than Sean Harris. He's going around, just going,
We've got Noomi Rapace.
Yes.
In the lead. Because we don't have Ripley anymore.
No.
This is our first Ripley-less alien film. She does a blinking good job, though. So she's good in this. So she's coming off the back of, you know, the girl in the Dragon Tattoo trilogy. We've got Michael Fassbender, as we mentioned, Guy Pearce, Rafe Spall, Eamon Elliott, Benedict Wong, you know, Kate Dickie. I mean, it goes on and on.
Loads of people.
I mean, this is, you know, brilliant cast. Ensemble. This is very much an ensemble. Like I said, it takes its time. It's world building. It's mythologizing.
Yeah.
And so it takes a while for things to really kick into gear. Which might put a lot of people off. I mean, if your favourite alien films is Aliens, you might not enjoy this. But if you always like, I want to know more about the aliens, I want to know where they came from and why they keep eating us, this has got some of those answers for you.
It has some of them. That's the thing. It certainly raises
more questions than answers.
It raises more questions than answers, because there's so much going on here. So basically, we've got the introduction of an alien race called the Engineers, and they are supposedly responsible for engineering the human race, the humans, and also various other things. So this is a vehicle for discussing the nature of religion and creation on Earth, because of course we have the engineers, but who engineered the engineers? And there's that whole philosophical chestnut. And then we've got Michael Fassbender's character, David, who is the heart of these films, and he is Guy Pearce's creation. He's a synthetic, but he becomes obsessed with the notion of creation and how it is to be human, and what it is to be human himself. And that is the narrative drive of all of these films, really, is kind of David's obsession, and it's his story. And I just think, Fassbender, I think is absolutely fantastic in that role. It's just really great stuff. And,
there's another nice scene with him where he's watching Lawrence of Arabia. And you can see he's modelling himself on that character.
He makes his hair like Peter O'Toole's in that, and he's just like, because the opening scenes, it's just while everyone on the Prometheus, the ship, is in cryosleep, basically Michael Fassbender's just wandering around on his own, and he's just watching loads of films and stuff, and as you would, and there's something really sweet about that. And then
but I think he's also one of the creepiest synthetic humans we've had so far. Something a bit off about this character. But and there's also, I think the scene that really, this is the second time I've watched it, but I think the scene that always really sticks out in my mind, we haven't actually mentioned this previously because we're trying our best not to have spoilers. It's very hard because these films have been out for many years. One thing we haven't mentioned is that the horror of birth runs throughout all of these alien
motherhood
films.
Is definitely a theme.
Motherhood is a big theme. But it's like I've heard it explained as like men's fear of giving birth. That's what the alien films are about, and we get this scene without getting into too much spoilery territory. But we get a birth scene in this that is quite horrific.
So good.
It's it's brilliantly acted. Very well done, but it's quite, that's the standout scene for me. I mean, there are other scenes as well, but again, this isn't an action film. I wouldn't really call it a horror film.
No, this is hard sci-fi.
But that scene particularly sticks out in my mind. But I think maybe if you wanted more action and more stuff like that, you'd be disappointed because there's a lot of just people talking, really, and
that's what I love about it.
Stuff.
I love it for that.
But there's some really interesting, again, without spoilers, really interesting origins of the aliens, and
which may or may not make sense.
It's different. It's very different because we talked about the life cycle previously. Different life cycle, completely different life cycle in this. And things that were familiar elements, like the space jockey, are turned on their head.
Flipped upside down.
Or changed. Ideas that we had previously. And the things that aren't quite explained in this. There's a lot of, you'll be left with a lot of questions at the end of this film. But, there's definitely elements I enjoyed of this, but it is, the original Aliens is a slow film. Slow burn. This is quite slow. So some people might not enjoy that.
But for me, I wish it was slower.
Okay.
Very much so. Because that's the thing. I love this film an awful lot, but it frustrates me because I think it has the potential to be so much more. And I think where it falls down, as we mentioned earlier, it doesn't quite know where it is, whether it's its own original thing or whether it is an Alien sequel. And I think prequel. And I think that's partly why people took against it so much, is because the people who wanted an Alien film were kind of like, what is this? And then the people who wanted something different were like, why have you done that? Why have you tried to link it in with that? And I think that's, in a way, that's its failing, is having any kind of connective tissue to the original Alien franchise, because there's so much interesting stuff going on in here, and it's just hard sci-fi, like I said. And what I love about Prometheus, is it's got these Star Trek vibes. Like it's all about it's about philosophy and about exploration and new worlds and just the nature of life and everything. I just think there's some just such great stuff in there, but also there's just loads of really interesting stuff that's cut out of the film, and I think. I would have quite happily had that 20 minutes that is cut out of the film put back in, because there's a conversation with the engineers at some point which is completely excised from the film. And I think
that might have helped, because I think when I watched it for the first time, I was very confused.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's only reading something recently that, I mean, the first scene, I won't spoil, but I remember watching it thinking, what was that about?
Yeah, exactly. And that there's so much, like, the thing is with this and indeed with Covenant, there's actually just loads of homework that you need to do in order to make the film make a full amount of sense. And I think I would have just rather they just put it in the film and just let it be a bit longer and let it explore these ideas more, because with that stuff put back in, it's just a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned, because this is right up my street. Just,
that's Ridley Scott for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bless him. Buy the DVD.
Buy the DVD.
I think he's got a little bit of a scam going on there.
Yeah.
A little bit of a,
Yeah, don't put it all in there and then they'll have to buy the DVD to understand it.
You got to watch it again.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I think it's an interesting film. I think it's beautifully shot. It's completely different to anything we've seen before in the franchise. It is terribly slow. And there aren't many aliens in it.
No. Yeah, it definitely was maligned by a lot of people. But I think there's just so many bold ideas in there and just so much great stuff. And as we said, it just looks so gorgeous. That
I feel like people have reassessed it as well. After Covenant came out, this is the funny thing. So it felt like a lot of people complained about Prometheus.
Yes.
And then by the time Covenant comes out and Ridley's like, all right, here's what you asked for.
You want aliens, do you? All right, put some aliens in there.
And then people are like, oh, we like Prometheus now.
Yeah.
Can it be more like Prometheus?
Exactly. So I suppose, is it time, should we move on to Alien Covenant? That's the thing. So yeah, Alien Covenant comes in 5 years later in 2017. And
it's Ridley Scott again.
It's Ridley Scott again, but he seems to have taken on that criticism that that Prometheus wasn't alien-y enough, and then he makes Covenant quite alien-y.
Yeah. But I quite like Covenant because I'd avoided, and I'm a huge Ridley Scott fan, as you know, but I'd avoided it for some time because I remember it having some quite bad reviews and people saying, oh, it's not as good as Prometheus. And I actually really enjoyed it. It was much better than expected.
Yeah.
It does pick up after Prometheus, but as in the tradition of Alien, many of the characters are jettisoned along the way.
Yeah.
But not all.
Yeah, so this takes place 10 years after Prometheus, and it would have been interesting to see more of that kind of 10 years in between, but I understand why we get to the point that we do in this film. So,
but we do get Fassbender.
Fassbender is back.
Fassbender squared.
Yeah. Fassbender in 2 roles, and this is just great. So he's returning as David, but also he's appearing as a new synthetic, Walter, who is a newer model who is less human-like because people found David's
creepy.
Yeah, David's
he was
creepy.
A bit creepy.
Yeah, he was. So this one is a nicer synthetic, and
less human.
Yeah, less human and less realistic. And
but it's interesting because I feel like we're starting to get into Blade Runner territory here, aren't we? Mm-hmm. So that's interesting because we're getting into Blade Runner territory, and as we know, Ridley Scott directed Alien, he directed Blade Runner. We start getting into these questions that we've been asking in Blade Runner of what makes us human. Is a synthetic person a human? Are they better than humans? But so we get some Fassbender on Fassbender action in this, though.
Yes, and one of them blows. One of them blows, and the other one does the finger in. No, I have to say, I really enjoyed this film much more than I thought I was going to do.
Yep. There are some things. One of the weird things in this film, which didn't quite make sense to me when I was watching it, but makes a bit more sense now. There's a lot of couples in this film.
Yes, but they're colonists, of course.
Yeah. So So that's one thing I think people complained about is like, why is everybody a couple in this?
Yeah, because it makes sense.
They're on a kind of Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
And they're going to go and colonize a new world.
And they need to reproduce.
So it makes sense that we've got lots of girlfriends and boyfriends and husbands and wives.
And of course that raises the stakes quite a lot because everyone's emotionally invested in each other.
Which is something that lacking in the first film, and that's something James Cameron tried to introduce in the second one of these emotional stakes. So we get that tenfold in this film because everyone's spouse dies at one point without spoiling too much.
Well, we can mention James Franco actually, who is immediately killed.
James Franco isn't even in this film.
He's basically not in the film. But
he's a photograph.
Yeah, but he does appear in loads of the promotional stuff on YouTube. So that's the thing. That's the weird thing about Covenant in particular is that in the promotional run for the release, they released all these different short films or little basically deleted scenes, which are actually quite vital to your understanding of a lot of the film and in terms of building up the character developments and all that. So James Franco, because I was wondering about this, it just seemed so odd. I was like, did they just get James? Because there's a bit. Like, I'll just tell it's the first scene. James Franco is immediately burnt alive in a pod. And I thought to myself, was James Franco actually on set? Surely they didn't bring James Franco in just to sit in a pod and have some CGI fire surround him. And then there's like one bit of him talking on an iPad. And I was just like, what? James Franco must have been, why did he do this? But then he's in loads of stuff in this additional footage, and there's stuff of him being the captain and, hanging out with the crew members and all that. So he did actually hang out for quite a while, but I don't know whether he was under the impression that those scenes might be, in the film. But yes, he's very unceremoniously discarded instantly.
Yeah. But maybe is it part of that thing like we get, well, I don't even want to name other films because it'll be a spoiler for those films, but is it that thing where you have a big name in the film and people think, oh, that's going to be an important person in this film, and then you kill them off and people are like, oh, well, I don't know what to expect now.
That is often a thing. But the thing is, James Franco isn't even in the film. Yeah. Like, he's just not.
He's barely.
He's not. It's not like he doesn't even get a scene before he burns alive. Anyway, but yeah. So the point is, they're all couples, and there's a lot of emotional investment. And we've also got Danny McBride in there as well.
That's insane.
Yeah,
I don't know. Was that a 2-for-1 with James Franco?
Yeah, I don't know. But I actually think Danny McBride is really good in this film. I think he's odd casting, but I think.
Oh,
really?
Okay. I just can't look at him and just think it's Danny McBride. What's he doing in this film? But so an interesting cast, this one. A lot of well-known faces, but I don't think quite as stacked as the Prometheus. I think it looked great. I think it was fantastic.
Oh, gorgeous. All the wheat.
All the wheat.
Looks great.
Oh, get some yellow lighting. Ridley loves his gels, his coloured gels. It's a lot more your traditional alien film. It's a lot more people running away from aliens.
As it goes on. Well, that's the thing. What's interesting about this is because it's still, a lot of the film is kind of the hard sci-fi Prometheus, and but with a bit more of a kind of driving plot, because once again, these colonists, they're off to a new world, and then they hear a distress beacon, or they hear a signal from a closer planet, and they're like, oh, that planet looks pretty good. Let's go check that out and then see what this signal's all about.
Save some time.
Exactly.
Why spend
7 years in
cryosleep
when there's a planet right there? But then, of course, that turns out to be not so good an idea. And then, but once again, there's some really, really great stuff with David, who's been experimenting on the planet in the meantime. And there's
like a mad professor.
And that leads to some really interesting stuff. And of course, his interactions with his synthetic counterpart, Walter. That's some really, really great stuff.
I think those are my favourite scenes, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a lot of that kind of hard sci-fi of Prometheus, but then it just obviously as a reaction to people going, oh, this isn't very alien-y to Prometheus, the third act of the film is just pretty much a condensed version of Alien, and it just turns into Alien. It just turns into a completely different film for the third act, and it's quite a strange tonal shift, and it's very good, it's very entertaining, but there's just like it's just so odd. And there's one scene in particular. There's a shower scene.
Yeah.
Which just seems made for the trailer. It's like, we can put this in the trailer, and it's so slasher film. It's just like it's just so odd. It's such an odd decision to kind of send it in that direction.
I have noticed that the Alien films seem to get sexier as time goes on. Although I suppose that it has its moments in the first one.
Yeah.
With Ripley in her undergarments.
Yes, certainly.
But yeah, it does. I think it just does seem to be that thing of, let's just shove this in.
Yeah.
For the audience.
So it does feel very compromised in a way. But I really do think it's a lot better than people give it credit for.
I think that, I like I said, I'd avoid it for years and I quite enjoyed it. But I think it is that problem of like every time we get one of these films, we get another one, and a lot of what we've taken from that last one gets ejected.
And in a way that's kind of, it's appropriate for the franchise really, because it's, once again, it's a very different thing.
But it kind of leads up. Now, do you feel, without spoilers, the ending of this film, do you feel it happily leads up to the original Alien film, or do you think we needed a third?
Oh, we totally needed a third David film. We really did. And it ends on such a cliffhanger. I love David, and I really wish that third film in the trilogy had happened, because, as I say, these films are about his journey and where it could have gone after that. Of course, it definitely doesn't lead up to Alien in the way that Rogue One leads up to A New Hope.
I think it still makes sense. I think you can watch it and not feel like, oh my God, this doesn't make sense.
No. Well,
I think there's enough connective tissue that you can see it. Okay.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think I would have liked to have seen what David did next.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course,
it's a shame.
It is a shame. But yeah, I still, as much as people criticize this film, I still think it's just I had so much fun watching it. And again, I love all the sci-fi stuff in there. And again, going back to the Star Trek influence, I just love, Walter is really Data, really like Data. And I think, I have
to say, it's beautifully crafted as well. So many films these days, we moan about the CGI in films and how it seems to be getting worse.
Yeah.
But I think these films are really beautifully made. And, they're obviously put together with thought and pre-visualization, and not just kind of slapped together afterwards in some kind of factory process of some other films that we won't mention that do rather well at the box office.
Yes.
So it looks fantastic. And I think it does a good job of kind of transitioning us into the Alien that we know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think underrated.
But yes, as I say, I think the main problem with these films is they don't satisfy true hard sci-fi people, and they don't satisfy the Alien fans. And I think it would have been more successful without it being tied specifically to the xenomorph lore, because it's very confusing, the life cycle, and there's a lot of stuff that is just and it kind of throws out a lot of ideas that don't really get explained properly. And as I said, you need to do a lot of homework to understand a lot of it. But had all this deleted stuff been inserted into both of these films, I think they'd just be up there with Blade Runner and stuff for me personally, because
the DVD.
Get the bloody DVD. But watching Covenant for the second time, it was a far stronger experience than I remember for the first time. And great film, if flawed, and both of them flawed but magnificent. I think flawed masterpieces. You are listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and today we have been talking about aliens. So yes, we've just had a very lengthy discussion about the Alien franchise, but now it is time to...
something different, please, Paul.
Yes.
Something fresh.
Yes. Now it's time to talk about Alien.
What?
Romulus.
There's another one.
Another Alien film. That's right. They've made a new Alien film. and we're going to talk about it now. But yes, first of all, I want to do a little survey, because regular listeners to the show will know that occasionally when I go to the cinema, I am displeased by the behaviour of fellow audience patrons.
It's very grumpy.
Very grumpy. And my experience with Alien Romulus was on the more extreme spectrum. So basically, I went to see Romulus, and then sat behind me was a man, and he seemed to have brought a multi-pack of crisps.
A multi-pack?
Yes, honestly, so much rustling. It was insane. And he was consecutively eating these bags of crisps. And this multi-pack of crisps was stored in another plastic bag, which, of course, he obviously had to rummage around to find the right pack of crisps within the bag that's in a bag. And then proceeded to like eating with his mouth open, just going.
Oh, that's some ASMR right there.
Oh, God. And there's now the opening of Alien Romulus, it's this gorgeous shot of a ship flying gracefully through a silent space, because, space is silent, hence the Alien taglines, in space no one can hear you scream, which I don't think we've mentioned on this show yet. But all I'm hearing is rustle. Have I got something to rustle?
Okay.
So I was finding it quite difficult to concentrate on the beginning of the film. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to work out. And then another man came and sat right next to, a seat. Another man, about 10 minutes into the film, sat down one seat away from me on the front row. And he got out his own massive bag of crisps.
There must have been on special offer.
I felt like it was a conspiracy. So I was like, F this. I'm going to... And I looked around and I was like, oh, right, there's space on the back row. I never normally sit on the back row. Okay. It's too far away. But I went there because that was the furthest that I could be away from other people. So I got to the back row and then I was like, the screen's a bit small, isn't it? Sound's not as loud back here. Oh, that's a shame. And then a couple came and sat right next to me 15 minutes into the film. And I was...
What, did they have multi-packs as well?
Well, they just sat next to me and that was enough. So that was enough to make me think, oh, this isn't the viewing experience I wanted for this film. So I left.
You just need to go when there's nobody else in the cinema.
Well, yes. Although sometimes with a film like Alien, it can be good to be with a responsive, audience that are getting scared. As long as they leave their rustly snacks at home. So anyway, I left after about 15 minutes, and I thought, right, I'm just going to go into the next screening, which was in the Dolby screen and was much bigger and much better. Anyway, so.
I think Paul has misophonia.
Exactly. That's the thing. I told Nadine about this and she was like, you're so fussy. And she diagnosed me with a disorder called misophonia.
I suggested that you had it.
No, you diagnosed. No, you said you have misophonia.
Well, this isn't the first time. Yeah. Paul has very sensitive ears for an adult. Paul, those noises that only children can hear? Yeah. Paul can hear those noises. So I suggested Paul get some, and no product placement here, but either some loops or some flare or some other type of earplugs available that kind of let sound in but sort of reduce some of those unpleasant noises. Because misophonia, if you don't know what it is, it's not just annoying, these noises, but it kind of... it enrages you.
Yeah, I was enraged.
Give you physical symptoms as well. Yeah. So, and this isn't the first time Paul has complained about people at cinema. Yeah. So I suggested, rather than getting into a rage, Paul buy some earplugs.
Yeah, but I suggest that everyone else is wrong and they should just stop eating rustly foods. So yes, I just wanted to have a little bit of a survey because, Nadine says that I have a disorder. But I would say that's just normal. If someone came and sat next to you and ate more loudly than you thought was humanly possible during a very, very tense film that you've been looking forward to seeing for some time, would you be I think that's perfectly reasonable behaviour to move.
It's giving Phantom Malcolm Thread.
Yeah.
Reynolds. I'm just eating toast. Like. But no, I didn't. Look, I would be terribly annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Would I move? No.
Wow.
Would I walk out the screening and go to another screening? No. So I suggest that perhaps it's a little bit more for you.
Yes.
But there you go.
So yes, I just wanted to tell the listeners that little tale, and I'd like you to email in and tell me, am I correct or am I mentally ill?
It's not a mental illness.
It's a disorder, though.
Yeah.
That's
Condition.
What that's what it said. Disorder on Wikipedia. Okay. You told me I had a disorder. So anyway, pictureshow@brumradio.com.
You do.
So pictureshow@brumradio.com if you'd like to validate my opinion.
It was a suggestion. I said you might want to look into this.
Yeah.
Anyway, can we get back to some films?
Yes. So Alien Romulus, which I would say is kind of a mashup of all of the OG franchise.
In a good way?
In a good way, but also in a bad way. Nadine, let's start with you. What did you think of Alien Romulus?
Wow. Can we just state that I learned a new word.
Oh, yes.
So apparently this film is not a sequel.
No.
It's not a prequel.
No.
It's not a reboot.
No.
Or a reimagining.
No.
It's an interquel.
That's right.
I'd never heard of this word before. This is a new word.
Yeah. I'm very glad you've taught it to me because it's, an interesting thought, an interquel.
Yeah, so this is canonically in between Alien and Aliens.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch this film and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to watch 6 films and then possibly Alien versus Predator twice to really get into this world, you don't have to, mate.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have to. Just watch Alien.
Yeah.
And then you can watch this.
There you go.
Or you could watch Prometheus and Covenant as well, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's an interquel. Like Rogue One. But yeah, it's Alien back to its horror roots. And I, for one, am here for it.
Yeah.
Alien has always been a horror movie. Trapped inside of an action franchise. Rather like the alien itself. Yes. Waiting to burst out in all its gory glory. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed this. I didn't know what I was getting in for. It's, again, we get more world building, something that some of the other films lacked. So we start off, we're on this other world. It's very Blade Runner-esque again. So I feel like Blade Runner DNA has just been spliced into the Alien franchise at this point. But we're in this it's a grimy world. It reminds me actually of The Batman. It's that really grungy, grimy, smoky, really kind of unpleasant kind of future, dystopian future. And we're with Kaylee Spaney.
Yeah.
Of Priscilla.
That's right.
And Civil War.
That's right.
She's on her way.
She's on her way. She's great.
On her way.
She's really good.
So she's excellent in this. And we do get, now I've said before how I like a horror film to just hit the ground running. And I don't like it, all this character. But actually we spend a bit of time with these characters before we get into, real alien territory. And I don't mind it at all. I think it's nice. I think it's something that's been lacking in many of the Alien films previously, is any kind of like backstory, any kind of human element. So they do spend some time fleshing these characters out before they start killing them off one by one. But we have Kaylee Spaney's character. She has a brother character who you might recognise from Rye Lane.
David Johnson, right?
Yeah.
That's his name. And he is fantastic.
Yeah. So can we say that he's a...
Yeah, I'd say so. Synthetic.
He's a synthetic as well. But he's like an adopted brother to her. So they've got that connection. And more Wayland Yutani. Nonsense.
Yes.
So they're basically they're slaves on this planet. They're indentured to Weyland-Yutani.
Yeah.
And they have so many hours, it seems, that they have to work off before they can go off and go somewhere nicer because they've literally never seen the sun on this planet.
Yeah, no hours of daylight.
Kaylee Spaney dreams of the sun, but she's yet to see it.
Yeah.
But in true kind of evil corporation fashion, they up the hours. They say, oh, yeah. You got to do double that now.
Yeah, I really like that bit. It's just like how it's just all this very kind of Kafkaesque, like a bureaucracy. It's just like, a little bit of Brazil in there. It's just like, it's this sci-fi world, but they've still got, clerks at desks who are like, sorry,
Computer says no.
Yeah, you haven't reached your quota. You're going to have to be here another 5 years. So I love that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not something we've seen previously. So I like that. So it's kind of inventing some of its own. I think credit where it's due to this film, it does do something fresh with the Alien franchise, I think. Yes, there is fan service in this, and there are lots of sort of mentions of the other films, but it's a different group of people. So we're going back to our blue-collar roots, where these are workers. But I think the fresh take on it is it's getting more like a slasher movie because we're with a bunch of teenagers now, which is the first time. We've had truckers, we've had scientists, we've had colonists, we've had prisoners, we've had scavengers. Now we've got a bunch of teens.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting take and maybe something that will revitalise the Alien franchise for the Gen Z generation.
Yeah.
So if you've never seen an Alien film and you're like, oh my God, all this lore, blah, 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 you're fine. You can come into this one blank. You'll get it. Yes, it's the same old format, like we said. Aliens eating people running away from aliens. But it does, I think it adds something new. It expands the world. It introduces these characters. It fleshes them out far more than many of the previous films have ever done. And visually, I think it's got its own stamp as well. His Fede Alvarez has put his own stamp on these films. The one thing that really does annoy me is it's got that greyish thing going on.
It does, yeah.
So I like Shadow. I love Shadow. But I like to be able to see what's going on.
I was thinking this when I was watching the film. I was like, Nadine's not going to like that lighting.
So it's just it's a problem with a lot of modern movies, I find. Yes, some people might say it's a style. I think it's a thing with digital films. We can go far darker than we could on celluloid. And I just think with all the blinking lights around in this film, we could have had a bit more light in it.
Yeah.
But I get that thematically it ties in with this planet that has no sun and whatever. So it doesn't completely spoil the movie for me, but I would have just liked a little bit more. Just a little a touch more. Would have been able to see some of this stuff. It's back to its horror roots. Yes, there is a fair amount of fan service, but for me, it didn't spoil the enjoyment. And I think if you've never seen any of the other films, you won't even know what the fan service, so it won't bother you. There's a couple of lines particularly that feel shoehorned in and probably shouldn't be in there.
No.
Just sort of quotes from previous films there's
a line from Aliens that should not have been in that film.
It doesn't really make any sense.
It just it doesn't make sense. And it so feels like they really want the audience to cheer at that point and go, yes, we remember that bit. Yeah. And it's like, that was such a shame, that bit. I was like,
But some great performances, I have to say. Yeah. Some new character dynamics. I think their reason for doing what they do makes a lot of sense. That's been set up, the stakes, why are they in previous installments we've had people doing things and you're like, don't do that, that's silly, but we get why these young people are doing what they're doing. We know it's all going to go terribly wrong.
Yes.
In true slasher fashion. But I think visually it's good, it's taut, it keeps it moving. And there's some sequences that are really great in this, I think. There's some throwbacks so in the original Alien film, we get these there's some, if you are a fan of Aliens, I think you will appreciate, there's a lot of little touches in here. So we've got them blinking birds everywhere. Everywhere. Those drinking birds. But we have there's some really nice little graphic design elements in the first film that are kind of very throwaway, just little symbols, and we see those pop up again. And actually are quite important. So we have, I don't know if I should mention, but we have some, I'm just going to say, we have aliens in Zero G.
Yeah.
And that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the, I don't know, I really enjoyed that.
No, I really enjoyed it, but I'm not. I don't know. I don't know enough about Zero G and acid because I was like, how is that a good idea? It's like I understand where you're coming from, but
it looks cool.
It looks cool.
Just accept it.
Yeah.
No, but there are some really cool sequences of this, and there's some interesting. We get as well some new tactics to deal with the aliens. You know, how do the aliens hunt and so on.
Yeah.
So some people might not like that.
Yeah, I had issue with that as well. But yeah.
But I don't know. I thought it was. I felt like we were expanding on it. We weren't just regurgitating. We weren't just repeating the same old beats. I felt it was fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. I mostly loved it myself, and as I said, I loved the detail and the scuzzy production design, and yes, he has done. Fede Alvarez has done his own thing, but I did love those little nods to the original, like with just the 1970s beeps and boops and the
monitors.
Yes, exactly, the computer screens and all that kind of stuff, and like the moment, the buttons, and the moment it started, I was like, that's nice. That's just we're in this world. And I really loved that. And it is, as you say, it is a back to basics horror film. And there's some really tense stuff here. But I do think it is, when I say it's a mashup of all of the original series, like I do think, because whilst it does have that small scale kind of isolation of the original Alien, it does blend that with the madness of aliens, and there are bits where there's face huggers everywhere, and there's aliens just all sorts going on. And also it owes a lot to Alien Resurrection. It really does, and especially its third act in particular. We can't spoil, but it is very, very Alien Resurrection-y. So in that way, in many ways, I felt it was the least original of the franchise, because it was just taking all these elements of the original series and just putting them together into something that was very good. But considering like how drastically different all of the other Alien films have been, I felt that this one was very much just a safe bet. They were like, okay, people didn't like that philosophy stuff, let's just give them an Alien film, and that's what it does. But there's some great, if somewhat silly, set pieces, and the final act is quite predictable in that you know how it works. They're going to escape, and then there's going to be the alien. Oh no, the alien's on the escape vessel. And again, like the alien life cycle stuff. Again, it's all confusing, because I did spend a lot of the film going, where did the face huggers come from? And then eventually it gets explained by a character. But it's Alien. It's just like that is the mythology. It's all over the place, and blah blah blah. I didn't think it was as original as any of the sequels really, but I did enjoy it very much, and I thought it was really effectively well done. For the most part, I thought it was a fantastic installment, and I did think it was absolutely a rollicking romp in the cinema. I don't know whether we can really address this, but
there is a character.
There's a character.
Without spoiling.
There's some necromancy that happens in this film. And
there's a character from one of the previous films that returns in this. And the way they return has upset some people.
Yeah, and I can understand that, because it does seem like, because again, that technology isn't there yet, I don't think. And regardless if it was there, I'm not sure philosophically, ethically, it is the right thing to be doing. Obviously, the estate of this person is sign off on it, but I was just like, that moment, I was just like, oh, okay, you really doing that? Are you really doing a Rogue One with General Tarek, or what's his name? Peter Cushing. Are you really doing a Peter Cushing? And I was like, oh, that is that doesn't sit quite right for me.
I didn't realise this actor had passed away in real life, so I realised there was de-aging involved.
Right.
When I was watching it, I wasn't having those thoughts because I just hadn't realised.
Oh, right. So you thought it was de-aging and not deepfake.
Yeah, so I thought, that's nice for them. They've got another payday.
Yeah.
They've got included. So I quite like the reference to that character. But then reading up about it since, I can see why it would upset people.
Yeah.
But that aside.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's interesting the way they've papered over the limitations of the technology, shall we say.
Yeah, definitely. So, that didn't quite sit right with me. And as I said earlier, there were some moments of lines from previous films that I was just like,
that didn't need to be
there. But yeah, despite the fact that it is just... it's a film made for fans. They're like, right, let's do Alien again.
But equally, if you've not seen any of them, I think it'll be fine.
Oh yeah, it was a great introduction to the franchise. So yeah, I really thought it was very, very good. My problem is that I love Prometheus and Covenant so much. I just want another David.
You wanted a third one, didn't you?
I just want another David film.
Maybe in the next one.
No,
they'll de-age him.
No, it'll never happen. But oh well. But anyway, so there we go. That was Alien Romulus. So it's time. Whenever we discuss a franchise, we need to do a final ranking. I have a feeling on both of our parts, this is going to be a controversial ranking for many people.
I think I'm worried. I'm waiting for the hate mail.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to have quite similar lists, maybe. So yeah, there we go. Maybe. I don't know.
See. I feel like, I don't think my ranking will sit right with a lot of people.
No.
So this is my ranking.
Go on.
So if you disagree, pictureshow@brumradio.com.
Mm-hmm.
First, Alien.
Yep.
I think that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
It started it all. So much thought and design put into it, and I love Ridley. Second, Alien Romulus.
Oh, okay.
So I did really enjoy it.
I had a feeling you might do that, to be honest. Yeah.
Again, I think it's the horror fan in me.
Yeah, go on.
Third one, I think this might be controversial. Alien Covenant.
Okay, yeah.
Then Prometheus.
Yeah.
Then Alien Resurrection.
Yeah.
Then Aliens.
Well.
Then Alien 3.
Okay, yeah, that's controversial. But I'll be honest, not too dissimilar from mine. So yeah, my ranking would be Alien.
Yes.
Prometheus.
Okay.
Covenant.
Yes.
Then Aliens.
Okay.
Then Romulus.
Okay.
Then Resurrection, then 3.
So we've got 3 films in there. So we can agree that Alien comes first.
Yeah.
Covenant comes third. And Alien 3 comes last.
Yeah.
So we've got those locked in.
There we go. But I do feel if people do actually email in, they're going to hate us for our ranking of Aliens. I'm sorry.
Please email in your ranking of Aliens.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. To be honest, I like all the films. But I actually, I love those Ridley Scott. I love the Ridley Scott ones. They're the best.
Ridley Scott.
I love a bit of Ridley. So
does Ridley.
Oh, very good. Well, there we go. That's it. We've spoken about the Alien franchise. We know we have missed so much, so don't at us. Well, please do at us.
Yes.
As we've said before on the show, we welcome hate mail.
At ScreenB14 on all the socials.
Yeah, or pictureshow@brumradio.com. So that is it for this week's show. Thank you so much for listening. But we've just got time for Nadine's roundup of local events.
Right, so on the 3rd of September, Journey Film Club will be showing Aligar at the LGBT Centre. On the 6th of September, Kneecap, which I highly recommend, will be showing at the Mac, and you get 2 for 1 if you're under 25. So really recommend that film. Makes me want to go and learn Irish. 9th of September, big recommendation here. ScreenB14, Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters at the Mockingbird. Tokyo Film Festival are kind of stealing our thunder on that one. On the 13th of September, Sturchley Open Cinema will be teaming up with Flatpack to show Isle of Dogs at Cotteridge Park. And on the 17th of September, Journey Film Club will be showing big fish at the LGBT Centre.
Oh, nice.
So if you want to check those films out, do go on their socials, or you can check out Another Bite of the Cherry on Instagram, where I link to all their accounts.
Lovely. Well, thanks very much for that, Nadine. Some very interesting stuff coming up, as always. That is all we've got time for on this week's show. Do please join us again next time. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from me, Paul.
It's goodbye from me, Nadine.
And it's goodbye from the xenomorph.
Hello, my baby.
Goodbye.
You have been listening to The Brum Picture Show, a Screen B14 production for Brum Radio. Tune in next time for more film fun, and don't forget to email us at pictureshow@brumradio.com. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
There's a knock at the door now.
Oh, hey, good stuff.
Is it Scooby? Paul is dressed exactly like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo this week. A child pointed it out to him. He's got the green t-shirt and the brown trousers, the whole shebang. And the hair, and the beard, everything. He's just missing a Great Dane.
You've been saying things.
No.
Thank you for listening to this Brum Radio podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us on your podcast app.